So at the moment we are going through an energy crisis, and obviously costs are getting quite high, and we're seeing so many people that have fish rooms, but maybe you have one tank and you would like more, or you want to do more of your hobby, but what can you do other than just have a fish room, which is expensive, it is difficult. So today I'm just going to talk about ideas regarding that. So I've written down a few ideas. The first one is actually reading about the topic, because yes, you can basically, what's the word? You can keep different fish, but learning through experience is very different, and you might never know how the fish are in the wild, the different species. Research means wonders, really. There's so much you can miss by not researching, and there's so much you can actually enjoy from it. There's other people's experiences, other people's knowledge. Maybe they've been to see those fish in the wild, they've studied the fish. There's plenty of books that have all sorts of knowledge, and it's not all about experience. And I would argue that you can't get any experience without doing first research, because then your experience is going to be how to not kill the fish after killing so many, most likely, or how to succeed after damaging so many fish. There's so much to learn. There's no point just you can't just expect that experience is going to give it all, and that you can never stop learning, to be honest. It's so important just to really do, and there's so much enjoyment you could take out of it. There's so many different books to read, so I've brought books on particularly my interest, so lorcarids, catfish. I've got a small collection of books on them, but I also bought books on Discus, and I only sort of dabble with Discus. I don't have a fish room. I'd love to be able to, I say this is a fish room, you've seen it, it's mostly plants, but I'd love to breed them, love to learn about genetics, I'd love to work with the different species, but I can't because I've only got 2 fish tanks. I'm in rented accommodation, electricity costs are high, and I'm a student. So what do I got books. They're quite old books actually, and you can see that the information isn't so attractively displayed, but it's got so much useful information that you wouldn't actually find probably on the internet. But I would say not just look at books. The internet is brilliant, and there's so many brilliant resources. Some take with a pinch of salt. I've recommended many websites. I've got many more I can recommend, particularly for different fishes, and some I actually forget. Like as a kid I used to go through Cichlids, I think, .com, and just look at the different Opistogramma, Microgeophagus and stuff like that, because I never have had the ability to have so many fish tanks. So what do? I just research. And is that bad? Well, no, because you're learning of other people's not just experience, but there may be scientific research, what's found in journals. And now I do use mostly journals, because those, for many reasons, have a lot of reliable information. Experience can only go so far. Like, people have bred fish in all sorts of conditions, doesn't mean those fish are living as long or as healthy. So I always advocate just looking at books, reading journals. You can learn as much or more than someone that is only just, oh, my Bo's sister, she's now just rasping on the snail shell for the sake of it, because she does that. She never killed them, and you can't see the rasp marks, but of course she's just doing that. So it's like, it's so useful just to research, and you can save so much trauma, I think. And it's something to spend time. I really enjoy just reading different books. I've got physiology books. I might find, particularly if there's a species that's challenging, something in a book that might give me tips on how to keep it. And hints, and journals have the same. And journals are just that you can look up how useful journals are compared to just, I kept this and it survived, therefore it's done well, or it's science at the end of the day. So books, journals, anything, just researching and comparing different resources. There's many things. Also for books, you got the Bircher Handbook on Polypterus. That's a brilliant book. And then what else? Oh, there's the Orinoco book. I don't even keep Polypterus. That book is brilliant. I've got the ones on catfish by Stephen Grant. He's done 2 different books on different catfish from different regions. I don't keep them for my barons. This just being the reason why I don't have Bunocephalus anymore, but I find them fascinating and I'd like to learn about them. So read as much as you can. There's so many different books, and even the fish you'd like to keep in the future but can't right now, there's no harm in researching them, especially if it makes you think, actually maybe I don't want to keep it in the future, maybe this is what the adult looks like, do I really want the adult, stuff like that. So what else can you do? Although it does cost money, I would say visiting fish stores. I worked in the industry 6 years. I've been in the hobby 16 years, and I reached this point, I guess because I've got limited fish tanks, I'm like, if I really want something, I'll get it. If I don't, then it's fine, and I'll go around fish stores just to look at fish. And I think you can learn a lot from actually seeing the fish, taking photos maybe. Because obviously online you might get a few unreliable resources, unreliable photos, but actually seeing the fish makes you understand it to another level. And museums can be useful, but actually accessing they mostly have marine fishes. But it's just something just to see the different species and maybe taking photos, thinking, oh, this doesn't look like what it is online. Maybe I'll research to see what it really is, because that part of learning is something that's really useful. And for a similar reason, I'd say actually fish aquarium groups on Facebook are really useful, and I could do a whole video on that, because there's so much learning that can be done through discussion, through debates, through disagreements, and also it doesn't just teach other people, it's teaching yourself. And also making your opinion, changing your opinions, making your opinion stronger, giving you a better, a more sort of mature opinion of a topic by discussion, really. People hate Facebook groups, but the thing is that people will actually question how you're keeping fish, or should question how you're keeping fish, or your opinion on a topic, rather than Instagram, YouTube, etc., where people will just agree with you, which isn't teaching you anything if people are agreeing with you. So it's learning through other people. Going to public aquarium is also a really good idea. I go to a few. I go to one because I'm not interested in marine. I'm like, I'll look up what has a good freshwater section and I'll go. Mainly to see different species. So I went to Bristol Zoo. They are no longer open in Clifton. They had Mississippi paddlefish. I've never seen them in captivity. I've been to the zoo twice and I've seen them, and it's absolutely brilliant. They also have gar. Only 2 species legal here. So it's just nice to see, and it's nice to see adults of fishes that are or shouldn't be kept in captivity, or adults that are much larger. So going to different public aquariums or zoos is just something else to sort of give you ideas and think about your hobby in another way. So another one is actually watching your aquarium, sitting back, just seeing how the fish are moving. And I think a lot of people don't spend enough time around their fish tanks. When it comes to lorcarids, many of them are shy, and some might come out if you spend more time around the tank, disturbing the tank, moving the tank around, moving around the tank. They might get used to it, or they probably won't come out. But if you have maybe a desk, a chair next to it, and you just sit there and wait, they might come out, and you might see certain behaviours from your fish. There's some fish I think aren't very good for that, like a lot of cichlids. They will sit and watch you, which you're not going to see any natural behaviours when they're sat just staring at you, which is what my discus tend to do. Particularly the red covers, they just sit there and stare at me, and when I feed, they sit there, like feed the fish, they sit there and stare at me even more. Until I go, then they start feeding, which is really annoying. So I sit back, because these guys aren't so bothered by me. Here, come to the fun. This is a Stenker male. He does need a shoal, or if I could find a female, I'd probably quite easily pair up with her, but he will sit and watch me, given the chance, or if he thinks, I think it's just that food and motivation. Puffers do it too, so some fish aren't very good at that, but you can see so many natural behaviours, understand your fish better, and sometimes if you can get up close, you'll see anatomy you never understood, maybe using it to research, thinking, oh, why does my fish have this, maybe I'll research that. Why is my fish doing that? Maybe I'll research that. And it doesn't have to be asking questions, it can just be looking through papers, looking through a book. Even it would be useful to actually keep a diary, even if you see any unusual things. You can't find anything for now, but maybe you're flicking through a book, looking through a journal, reading a website, and you actually see something that you can apply to that behaviour, but if you didn't write it down you might forget. Particularly when it comes to maybe you've had issues in the past and you might find it in a book. I particularly research certain topics, so I go through, I like to read about nutrition and feeding in fishes, so I tend to read that first. But also I think certain books are really good for health and disease in fishes. A lot of modern books tend not to be. I really like vintage aquarium books, and I've got some older ones here. I've got even older ones I think at my parents' house, because they have methods of keeping we don't do anymore, ideas in Fishkeeper we don't think anymore, etc. So this kind of leads on to one of my last points, and this is amateur science. So it doesn't have to be submitted to a journal, but there's so much you can learn by experimenting, by noticing, thinking about behaviour. Why is my fish doing this? And if you take note of it, it can be used in future. Aquarium fish, I think, are an undervalued resource for amateur science and understanding fishes, even breeding. If you maybe write a diary, a blog would even be useful, just on how, or even Planet Catfish, on how your fish bred. There is actually, I've seen a paper, I don't really read breeding attempt journals, but I did see a paper on breeding a Panaculus. I don't know why, some papers, I don't know, but I've also seen papers on different topics that you could almost experiment with things yourself, because you don't need a fish room. I do all sorts of experiments. I've played videos to my Discus to watch of other Discus and seeing how they respond, and it kind of leads on to obviously enrichment, trying different things, trying different decor, trying different foods. They're not thick, fish are smart. Depends on the fish obviously how smart and how intelligent, but just trying different things would be amazing, and just seeing how they interact with different things. Maybe you have certain fish and like even like a tank mate might provide a different, obviously a suitable tank mate might provide different enrichment, different decor, different feeding, flow. Really think about how you're keeping your fish. It's not all about fish rooms. We don't need to hoard and collect different fishes. We can just enjoy what we've got. You can have one aquarium, you can have 2 aquariums. It's not all about that, and it doesn't make you any better or any less of a fish keeper by having 1 or having 100. You can earn just as much. And even working in a fish store, I think if you do it right, or if you're willing to learn and spend the time to learn, you can learn an awful lot. Particularly identifying different species if you're doing wild import, but even then, like even just taking the time, you see with like Corydorus julii, Corydorus triniatus, to think, maybe I'll research this fish, just spend 5 minutes to look up what the wild fish looks like, and maybe think, oh, mine doesn't look like that, maybe it's something different. So it is really worth just spending time, and that you could do while visiting a fish store, to be honest. That it's not all about having loads of aquariums, because obviously the maintenance takes time, but electricity, you can just enjoy what you've got, and I think that's important. And a lot of hobbies it's not all about collecting. It can just be about enjoying what you've got, and I think it's so good for mental health just to not think about the next thing. It's quite good to think about where you're going, where you are, where you actually want to be, and how you can get there, because is getting more fish going to get you there, or is learning more? Do you want to become more knowledgeable about a certain topic, maybe read about a certain topic? Not everyone can have big tanks either, so maybe you just want to learn about tanks, and there's so many people that have amazing libraries of fish books and journals and stuff like that, and know so much about fish without having a fish room. There's just so much more to it, and I think it's important to recognise, because people are under so much pressure to have more tanks in the time where it is so expensive to have aquariums, and some fish obviously cost more than others, and maybe it is worth looking at different colder water alternatives sometimes, because there are so many brilliant cooler water fishes. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you like my videos, please comment, like and subscribe, and goodbye.